Happy Friday, partners! I'm Katie Rodriguez, one of your friendly associate product managers, broadcasting live from TakeLessons headquarters here in sunny San Diego. We're thrilled to host another partner conversation in the TakeLessons partner community today. And if you're tuning in with us for the first time, partner conversations are a way for us to share the best ideas, hints, and tips we can find, with the end goal of helping all our partners be successful in their business as educators. For any viewers who haven't seen my post in the community, a brief introduction. As a member of our product team, I help our software developers deliver partner-focused features like the Insights dashboard and your new inbox tab. And on behalf of everyone here at TakeLessons, thanks for joining us today. I'm sitting down with Phillip Fullerton, a rock star piano teacher who's been with us since April of 2010. We invited Phillip to share some insight in how he's built a studio of mostly online piano students. So, Phillip, welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Wonderful. I'm happy to be here with you. To all our viewers streaming with us live, we welcome your comments and questions in the chat. Maria Hernandez, your partner community moderator, will make sure we get the chance to answer any questions you have. So type them on in there. Feel free to introduce yourselves, and let's get started. So, Phillip, thanks again. Just to help everyone get to know you better, let's start with the basics. Where do you teach?
Well, I teach in my home studio online, and I now live in Oak Island, North Carolina. I just moved about 6 days ago.
Wonderful. And where did you move from? Or where did you move to? You're in Oak Island now?
Yes, I am in Oak Island right now. 6 days ago, I moved here. All my stuff is not here. So I have a keyboard that I moved with me, an amp, and all the stuff I absolutely have to have. My acoustic piano will be on its way at the beginning of next week.
I bet that's a bit of a project to ship.
Yeah, so acoustic pianos can weigh anywhere from 400 to 600 pounds for uprights, depending on the size and the age and all that.
Wow.
So you do have to have movers do that.
Wow, that's quite a big move. You teach piano, and what else?
I also teach singing, music theory, and occasionally viola, if I'm asked to.
How many viola students do you have?
Right now, just one. I try to keep that small. I'm the type of teacher that likes to focus on one or two subjects. So although I know a lot of teachers out there can teach 20 different instruments, I am not that person. So.
Awesome. So what kind of educational background do you have?
Well, I went to the University of South Carolina from 1994 to about 2000. Mm-hmm. I got a bachelor's degree in piano performance and started and didn't quite finish a master's degree in choral directing. I also did a lot of master's credits in piano pedagogy as well.
Let's talk about why you didn't finish your master's. You don't seem like a quitter. What happened there?
No, I'm not. It got to the point where I realized that, unfortunately, about a year and a half in, I was thinking, well, I don't know if I really want to be a choir director. And it just kind of hit me, and I was just thinking, this just isn't the job for me. I don't think I want to be a high school choir director. I don't want to be a church choir director anymore. That was kind of my goal, was to be a church choir director. And then realized that that wasn't really what I wanted out of life. I like the solitariness of the piano, but I like the camaraderie of the choir. So I figured that I just needed to go back to and figure out what I really wanted to do.
Great. Thanks for explaining. How long have you been teaching?
Since about 1995, I was in the piano pedagogy program at University of South Carolina. Now, they don't have a bachelor's degree in pedagogy. They have a master's degree, which I know seems a little odd. Why would you only have a master's degree in something? That's kind of common in music for pedagogy. A lot of schools don't do bachelor's degrees in it. They do education or performance. And then you get to a master's degree, and they have a pedagogy option. So I did a lot of the pedagogy classes there. So I was required to teach children during those while I was taking the pedagogy classes as well.
Okay, so essentially you got started teaching as you were studying
Right.
pedagogy. Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting. And how many students do you have now?
Right now, because I've moved, I had quite a bit of in-person students that did not want to try online for one reason or the other, whether they might have just been too young. One student, the dad said, well, we really want her to go somewhere that has a real piano to work on. And he's like, it's just certain situations were in place that they couldn't get a real piano into their home at the time. So they wanted her to at least once a week to be able to play on a real piano.
Okay.
And so she didn't have that. And there's other reasons for other students. So right now I have, I think it's about 23. I just added one this week. So
All right.
just yesterday, one was added. So that was
Excellent.
good.
And where do you get your students?
A lot from TakeLessons. I have a website, other similar sites to TakeLessons, Facebook, things like that. So, and my plan is now that I am totally free of other jobs. That number 23 might sound small, but that's because I was working between 20 and 25 hours a week at other jobs, other music-related jobs. Those are gone now. For good and for better, I think. I plan on growing my student base as fast as possible.
So you're in the midst of a transition, not just moving from one place to another, but in life you're moving towards having more students and being online more?
Yes, and I want to do this because I feel like this is the way I can control my life a little bit better. I don't have to be somewhere specific for Easter or Christmas or whatever occasion might be happening at the church. Or I once a month at the church I was at, I had to do evensongs, which is a very song-chanted type of service. And I had to do that once a month. So there was a lot of things that were kind of keeping me in one place and also taking a lot of my time where I could not open up that time to students.
Okay, so you're free now.
Yes. I'm a free agent, kind of.
All right, I'm excited for you. This sounds great.
Yeah.
And you are able to do this partially because you have a solid studio of students. Why would you say students book with you, and why would you say students stay with you?
I think booking, part of it is at least through TakeLessons. I have lots of photos. I have an intro video. I have some videos, very brief, like demo videos of me playing piano. I think somewhere in there I have a couple of videos of me singing musical theater or some other solos. So I have a lot of information on there. The newest student that I just got, she said that her son wants to learn Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata and says, well, we also love Chopin. And I was looking through your profile and I saw that you had a brief intro video of you playing Chopin. And,
oh, wonderful.
And she said that's basically why they chose me.
Excellent.
So.
And in that Chopin video, did you say who you were, or is it just you playing?
It's a video of just me playing, and I think at least one of them I do say something about how this is an intro video of me playing whatever piece, so that they at least know what I'm playing.
Excellent. And why would you say students stay with you after they book with you?
Oh, okay. So one of the most important things is being willing to do what the student needs rather than what you feel like you need. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of, especially piano teachers out there. I'm on a pedagogy site on Facebook, and there's a lot of teachers on there that they get to this point in their life that they feel that if the student is not accomplishing what they want the student to accomplish, they don't want to have that student.
Oh dear.
And I feel like it should be the other way around. Mm-hmm. That you should be accomplishing what the student needs, not the other way around. If they want to progress at a slow pace and just have fun with it, that's great. If they are determined to progress as fast as possible, that's also fine. And I have both of those.
So you're saying as a teacher, I can't just be an expert musician. I also have to be very interested in knowing my students deeply.
Right. Yes, you have to know what they want and ask them up front to say, what are your goals as far as playing the piano or singing or whatever?
Great. Thanks for explaining. What are your secrets for success with Take Lessons?
Keeping the students. So doing whatever you can to keep those students. If you keep the students, then you're going to have a better chance of getting more new students. Mm-hmm. And as far as Take Lessons specifically, go on the website every day, although I'm on the website every day because I'm teaching 6 days a week anyway. So that's, of course, I'm on the website a lot. Keep your availability up to date. Make sure it's right. Otherwise,
Really?
that can really mess you up.
Do go on.
Okay, so if for some reason you go into your availability and just click the button and don't even look at it and don't make sure that it's right, you may get that one student that signs up with you. And they sign up for, I don't know, whatever time, Wednesday at 3 a.m. because you just, for some odd reason, decided that you were going to click on that and didn't look at the a.m. and p.m.
Right.
And you're like, I'm not available at that time. Well, your availability says you are.
Right.
That doesn't look good to a student. So you want to make sure that it is. And my example of that is I remember going in there, one day thinking, I need to make myself unavailable on this day at this time. And then I didn't do it for like 3 days. But then I got a student within that time that signed up on that time. And what did I do? I taught them at that time.
Right. Well,
make sure that you are willing to be flexible for that.
Good. That's a solid point. Before I ask the next question, I just want to remind anyone who's watching that you can type your questions and comments in the chat, and Maria Hernandez, your community moderator, is going to make sure that I get your questions so we can answer them all at the end of the broadcast. And real quick, Philip, if you don't mind sharing any interesting factoids that you'd like everyone to know.
Okay, well, a couple weird things. In my classes, especially my group classes that I teach for Take Lessons, a lot of kids want to see my cats, and they just beg me to see my cats, and I make them wait till the end of the lesson so that they stay.
That's excellent.
And there's a couple other things I've done. I have taught, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do this in my move now, toddler music classes. I know there's other Take Lessons teachers that have done this. I do that from something called Music Garden. Music Garden was developed by the same person who developed Kinder Music, so more of you might actually know what Kinder Music is. And so what you do is you're in a room with lots of little kids and their caregiver, whether it's mom, dad, grandma, granddad, a nanny. I've had nannies bring them, whatever. And what's great about that is if there's an issue, the caregiver takes care of, the crying toddler or the toddler that runs out the door, figures out how to open it. And you don't have to worry about it. You just go on with the class.
Nice. So, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
So let's talk about general getting to know you questions. Let's say you're at a networking party and someone asks you what you do. You have 10 seconds to respond. What do you say?
Say I'm a professional musician and I teach private and group lessons. And
nailed it.
I believe that saying that you are a professional musician is so important rather than saying I'm a private music teacher. Mm-hmm. If you say you're a music teacher, where do you teach? They think that you teach for a school. Okay. Say, well, I teach by myself. I teach out of my own home studio. And then they usually get this weird look on their face of like thinking, how is that a job? I've had that happen. A guy at my church, when I first joined the last church I was in, he asked what I did, and I said, well, I sing here, and I teach piano and voice privately. He's like, well, that's great, but that doesn't make any money. I was like, yeah, it can.
Wow, way to judge.
Money. It's like, yeah, and I'm like, well, I'm also a professional musician. I do sing and get paid to do it. So there's a lot more involved in that, and you have to find a way to tell them what you do without having them think, oh, yeah, that you must be like a stay-at-home dad or stay-at-home mom then.
Right.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. I've had lots of friends that are.
Right.
Because that is a bigger job than what I do.
Fair. So tell us the story of how you got started teaching.
Well, I started teaching, I said before, in college, and I really enjoyed it. I had a couple, you start with 2 students. They give you 2 students in most pedagogy programs to teach through that semester.
Okay.
And then at the end of the semester, they do a recital for those students. And so I actually really enjoyed doing that, and didn't realize I would enjoy it. When I was in high school, my whole idea was that I would be a concert pianist. And I would go get my doctorate and be a concert pianist and a professor at a university.
Essentially the rock star of the classical music world.
Yes, exactly. The really famous person that nobody knows.
Right. Except for all of the other awesome pianists. They would know you. You would be famous to them.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I got started with it. After that, after I went into the choral directing program, I kind of got a little burned out because I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do.
And why, you mentioned that before, but why wasn't it what you wanted to do? Especially since you'd been taking master's level classes at that point, right?
Yes, this was a master's degree in choral directing.
So what was it?
I just felt like the personality needed to be a choir director was not me. And there's nothing wrong with this, but I feel like I'm too nice to be a choir director. I love choir directors. This is for any of you that are choir directors. This is not I'm not, jabbing you. This is that I have friends that are choir directors. It takes a certain personality to be able to do that job and be able to handle, especially in a church choir situation, to be able to handle all these personalities that want to do 20 different things and deal with that and create a great product. And that just wasn't really, I was good at it, but it really wasn't my personality. I personally more enjoyed working with people one-on-one.
Got it. That's fair. That makes tons of sense. So when did you decide you wanted to be a teacher? When was that moment?
Well, when I decided I liked teaching, especially piano, when I was in college. And so I decided when I was doing the pedagogy program that I loved teaching. And so that was another reason I went into the choral directing, is that's another form of teaching. And I knew I really enjoyed that. As far as when I became kind of more tried to make it a full-time thing, gradually make it a full-time thing. So it wasn't until about 2007 when I moved to North Carolina from Michigan. I was actually working as a technician for Geek Squad because of being burned out. I was just good at it. That's just the way it was. I was just good with working with computers. So I just did it. And it was a way to make money in the meantime. And so when I moved to North Carolina, I kind of slowly went away from that and built my studio so that I could teach more, just because I realized that, hey, I actually do enjoy doing this, and I really enjoy working with people one-on-one.
Okay. And did you choose piano, or did piano choose you?
Well, it might be more that my parents chose piano, but at the same time, now that's because I started at 5 years old. So that's not to say I don't love the piano. I absolutely love playing the piano. I love teaching the piano. I'm good at it. It is the right instrument for me. I really do love it. And a great way to explain it is I tried playing a flute like 3 times and I could never get a sound out of it. So I just said, this thing's broken. I'm not going to try again.
Fair. If you're joining us just now, I'm Katie Rodriguez, broadcasting from TakeLessons headquarters, and we're talking with Phillip Fullerton, rock star piano teacher online with us. It's applause for you, Phillip. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat, and Maria Hernandez, your community moderator, will make sure that those questions get to us at the end of the show. So, Phillip, let's talk business. Do you mind if we share your earnings this year?
Sure. So far this year, I've made almost $6,200 through Take Lessons. Now, that's just Take Lessons. That's not my other income that was from my church and from my cover band that I was in and other things that I was teaching in person. So that's just so far. That also takes into account that I took 2 weeks off for a vacation.
Right.
So I think that's actually going pretty well so far. My goal is to increase that tremendously this year. Now, as far as my other income, there's no point in mentioning it because it's gone now. As of this week, it does not exist. My paycheck from the church doesn't exist. I have one more band gig coming up next month, and then it's done.
This is exciting.
Yes.
It's like you're off the runway.
Right.
And we'll see if the plane flies. I'm stoked for you. So what's the secret to earning as much as you're earning just from teaching alone?
Well, make sure that you are flexible with students. The reason I say that is I find that if I am willing to work with students on scheduling, as long as they are somewhat mostly consistent with keeping their lessons and taking every week if possible, if I am flexible with them and have time available to change a lesson or whatever needs to be done, I feel like they're more likely to stay with me. And I have a lot of students that stay with me just because of that. If they say, oh my gosh, today this happened and I can't believe this, okay, well, what other time would you like? What other time? I have time on this day or this day. What can you do? What would make it better for you? So
scheduling, and I heard you mention earlier also with regard to what the students want to learn and why, it sounds like you're flexible there also. Yes,
be flexible, be willing to do what the student needs. Be willing to say, okay, I am a classical pianist. And the student says, well, I want to learn how to play Led Zeppelin. You teach them how to play Led Zeppelin.
What is the thing that you have taught, one of the things that stands out that you remembered teaching a student where you figured, you know what, I really do not like this music, but this is what they want to learn?
Well, I hate to say this, but I've had kids that at least before, in the past, I had kids that wanted to learn Taylor Swift. Singing Taylor Swift, not just playing it. It's one thing to play it, but they wanted to sing it, and I was just like, oh, I have to pretend like I'm enjoying this. Hey, and you do.
And did you? Yeah, you did.
Just because you don't enjoy one artist, because I think that Taylor Swift's a genius, but I don't particularly like her music for myself. So, for some reason she's listening. I don't mean that. Or her best friend is on Take Lessons, like, well, I don't like that. I mean, it's just you just kind of say, okay, I know how to make this good for this student, and I need for this student to feel like they're enjoying what they're singing or enjoying what they're playing.
Excellent. And with regard to how many students you have, I've heard you say that you have some that have been with you a very long time, and they were some of your first online Take Lessons students, and they were at different prices than they are now, than your online students now. Is that correct? Yes,
they are. They are at a much lower rate. So when Take Lessons first started online for everybody and rolled that out for everybody, there was the option to change the pricing for online and in person. And so I was one of those people that said, oh yeah, that's a great idea because online shouldn't cost the same as in person. That's completely wrong. So don't think that I actually believe that.
Interesting.
But I did believe it at the time. I thought, well, I mean, come on, online is not as good of a lesson, is it? So should I charge them the same? Well, yes, you should. But unfortunately, back then, I was charging a lot less for those online lessons. But those students, I have about 4 students that have stayed with me since, I think it was 2014 or 2015. I can't remember. Whenever we started the online lessons. My very first online student through Take Lessons is still taking with me.
That's awesome. That's a very, very long time and especially in terms of student longevity.
Right.
That's how many years, just to clarify?
So it's been almost, well, it would have been about three and a half years, I think, now. And this student has gone through, he was taking the first student was taking violin lessons from someone. He was playing in an orchestra, and then all of a sudden, sometime last year, he's like, yeah, I'm not playing violin anymore, but he was still taking lessons from me.
Excellent. That's great. So where have you gotten your students in general?
So in the past, I had, for some of my in-person students, I would get them through word of mouth or flyers occasionally. I don't really believe flyers work all that well anymore. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it, I get a lot of students through TakeLessons. I get them also a lot through some other sources that are very similar. There's a lot of resources online, and I recommend that people use as many resources as they can find. If you want online students, you have to use every resource that's out there. Right. Don't just think that, okay, I signed up with TakeLessons, so now in 1 month I'm going to go from having 3 students to having 50 students, and I don't have to do anything, because that's not the way it works. You've got to do the work. You've got to get out there and find these other websites and utilize whatever works for you. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of options. And also have a website. If you can build a website, it's not that expensive.
That's fair. So you mentioned that you can't just join TakeLessons and expect that all the students are going to roll in immediately. Can you share what an aha moment was for you? What breakthrough moment happened in your career with us that really was a watershed for how much you've been able to earn through teaching online?
I think that one of the things was, I've kind of already said this, but is to not just stay, like, so in piano we have these things called method books, and a lot of instruments have method books. And those method books are really, really useful for getting a student to a certain point. The problem is some of the method books might have 5 levels or 8 levels or whatnot. And you get to a point in those books where the students are going to get bored most of the time. And once you notice that boredom and where they don't really want to play the pieces that are in the book, you need to find out what those students want. And I think that was what happened to me, is I just started to realize, okay, these students, some of my students are really not liking like working through the Alfred book or working through the Faber book. What do I need to do? And I was like, wait a minute, why don't I ask them? So ask them what they want. Excellent. What do you want? It's like, do you like this? And please be honest. Do you like this song you're singing? Do you like this piece you're playing? No, I don't. Okay, then let's not do it. Let's do something else. If you don't like it, if you are hating it, I can't stand Bach fugues, so I don't play them.
That's fair. And imagine for those students who may be used to teachers who don't ask them what they like.
Yeah, it's like, you're going to play this, you're going to play this, and this is the way you're going to get better. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true, because they might quit and they'll never get better.
Right. Now, you mentioned before that it used to be true that most of your students were in person, and yes, now you're saying that most of your students are online. What tipped the scales for you? How did that happen?
I think that a lot of that is that more people want it. I really think that more people just want online. They want to have the option to not leave their home and also not have a stranger come into their home. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it's the people are changing. Kind of like how I did. I mean, I know that I was wary of online at first, of teaching online.
Wait a minute, Philip. You're a classically trained pianist. You worked for Best Buy, and you were wary of online lessons.
Yeah, and I would set up people's internet, Wi-Fi, all of that. I would do all that, but I was still wary, even though I was teaching family members online, but I kind of knew their playing style, and they already had a good deal of piano. What made me mostly wary at first was I felt like I needed to be in person with the student, in front of the piano with them, so that I could really show them what to do. Or if their hands were doing something wrong, I could help them and move them around. And then I did come to realize, like, hey, I can tell them what to do. And that may be harder at first, but once they get to understand what I'm telling them to do, they will get it. And I think online is a great way to teach. It saves tons of time driving for one or the other. So I just really think it's just the way to go. But I really was wary of it at first, which I know seems strange.
Well,
but now I think it's
so
great.
Much seems strange, as I think you were trained by people who use their hands to correct you, right?
Yes.
So that's where you were coming from, and let's just go out on a limb and say that this generation of people learning now are the first to really make a shift from the way things used to be taught to the way everyone will be doing in the future. So
right.
Can you help all of our partners understand how, in your mind, in terms of your pedagogy, how did you make that adjustment so that you could change your whole business plan and catch the wave of online lessons?
I think you just have to be willing to be flexible, and you have to be willing to listen. And I've heard a lot of other online teachers say this that teach piano and voice, that you have to realize that your ears can do a lot of work that your hands used to do and your eyes used to do. And your ears, you need to train your ears to be able to do this. You need to, even at some point, just say, okay, listen to this and close your eyes. How did we used to learn certain things in the 90s? Like, say, a vocal piece. Let's say I was singing an aria and I wanted to learn it better. I would listen to it, but would I watch the person? No, it was the 1990s. I would listen to it on CD or a record, or even more fun, a 78 or something like that. But you would listen. And you have to realize that you have to develop your hearing, develop what you're listening to, and you can help that student, even just by listening and then learning how to tell them what to do better.
Right. So it sounds like you learned to develop very specific skills to adapt your teaching style to deliver the same value online as you would if you could move their fingers with your hands.
Yes, exactly.
And now that you can do that, would you say that's one of the reasons why you don't underprice your online lessons anymore?
Exactly, yeah. I'm giving them the exact same product. So why would I charge them less for the exact same product? No reason.
I agree. I mean, that makes total sense, because on top of that, no one has to travel. We don't have to expend carbon, right?
That's right. So they actually are saving money, because if I go to their home, they're going to pay me a travel fee. They can they can de-stress by not having to be in that traffic.
Exactly.
And have a better lesson.
Right. That's all fair. So what has been the secret to your success with TakeLessons overall? I remember you mentioning that keeping your profile and availability up to date are very important. Is there anything else that you would say is key to your success?
Okay, have the best equipment you can possibly have for what you're teaching. So, you see I've got a microphone here. No, it is not a Yeti. My Yeti died.
Oh.
It just and died and fell over. Actually, the mic, the mic jack, the headphone jack just completely just decided, I don't feel like working anymore. And so I changed. I bought an Audio-Technica. They all work great. They have their pros and cons. This is a higher end mic. It costs more. It doesn't do as much as the Yeti does. But like Yeti, all of those are great mics. Have a good mic, have a good camera, have really high-speed internet, as good as you possibly can. If you can plug directly in, always plug directly in. If you can't, make sure your Wi-Fi card is the best that you can buy and that you have a full bar signal.
Got it. All fair. Thank you for sharing. And what words of wisdom would you like to share with new partners who recently joined?
Be patient. It takes time to get that first student. There's so many teachers on Take Lessons. Even when I first started, back in 2010? See, I don't even remember. In 2010, there were still a lot of teachers. There weren't, of course, not as many as there are now, but there also weren't as many people seeing the Take Lessons website as there are now.
Right.
And it took me, I think, about 8 months to get one student. Now, that's not to say that you won't get one faster now. That was back then. So it does take time. So you do have to be patient, but they will come. And if you can retain those students, then you'll get more students.
Right. One of the common themes throughout our discussion just now is retention, that you work very hard to keep your students. And from the back end of the software, I can't agree more. That's one of the best things you can do.
And I even have one example. I have one student who is, he says he's functionally autistic. I don't know how much that he told me that. I don't know the level. Now, his parents were really iffy on him taking voice lessons. Okay. And at some point, I think he told me, he's like, yeah, they're not going to pay for my lessons anymore. I have to pay for them. And I said, well, how much can you afford? And that's what I'm going to charge you.
Wow.
Because I just said, you know what? I don't want this kid, a 17-year-old kid, to have to feel like everybody's telling him he can't do something.
That's amazing.
I think it's really unfortunate when that happens. And so I'm only charging him what he can afford, which it still makes me money. And I'm retaining that student. I'm keeping that one student. And of course, I don't make a habit of doing that. But with this kid, too many people in the past told him, hey, you're not good enough to do this. You can't do this. Like, you're not, he said he had a guitar teacher that did that to him, that said he wasn't good and that he needed to just quit.
Oh, dear.
And that should never happen.
I agree.
Never tell a student that. Never, ever, ever tell a student that they are not capable and can't do it.
Right. Well, I'm delighted to hear that there are teachers like you out there who pay so much attention to what students need and are flexible no matter what. And at this time, I just want to remind all of our partners that if you have any questions, put them right on in the chat box, and Maria Hernandez, your community moderator, will make sure that those questions get to us for the end of the show. And we can do a lightning round of real quick questions that we like to ask all our partners. So first, Phillip, why do you teach?
It's fun and I'm good at it. That's pretty much it. I just like teaching, and I feel like I'm good at it. And I used to not think I was good at it. I would keep telling myself I wasn't. And then I started watching other teachers, and I'm like, I'm just as good as them. When I was in pedagogy classes, the master's degree students, I would watch them teach. I'm like, gosh, I'm just as good as them, and they already are in the master's program.
Well, all right. So well, you like it and you're good
at it.
Not
to be conceited. I'm not trying, just...
Well, honestly, I think we covered that you're not conceited, because you're flexible.
Right.
So, thumbs up. What's one thing that you're fired up about right now?
I'm moving to the beach. Well, it's a really old mattress on the floor.
It was like camping.
It is, and I also have a cat that's a little weird. So he sleeps all day because he's scared of everything, and then at the middle of the night he starts making as much noise as possible. So yeah, so I wake up at 4:00 in the morning to him doing that, but I love it. I'm at the beach. I'm 1.5 miles from the ocean now, so it's awesome.
All right, what's the best advice you've ever received?
To slow down and breathe. I know that I do talk fast. Sometimes, even when I'm playing, this was noticed of me when I was younger. Well, my teacher one day just said, wait a minute, are you breathing while you play? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have time for breathing. So she just noticed that I would hold my breath, because I really can hold my breath for a ridiculously long time.
Wow.
So I would just hold my breath while I'm playing. She's like, you've got to start breathing. I'm like, but when I breathe, I can't play. She's like, you've got to start breathing. You've got to calm down. You've got to slow down. It'll help.
Well, that's solid advice. Share one habit that's contributed to your success.
Well, this is what I've said before. Be encouraging no matter what. Even if your new student is completely tone deaf, make it a challenge. If they say they're tone deaf and you think they are, I had a friend in college that took someone that we all thought was tone deaf, and he said he was, and we believed him, and within 6 months she had him singing in tune.
Excellent. And what's one internet resource you'd like to share with your fellow teachers?
Okay, well, this one has nothing to do with finding students. It's musescore.org.
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 All right.
It is a music writing program. It works on Windows, Mac, and Linux, so it's available for everything. It is free. It's open source. We love open source stuff, and it's similar to Finale. I think that the MuseScore's free version, it only has a free version, is better than the kind of lower end Finale programs.
Wonderful. So at this time, we'll be taking questions from the community. And if you're just joining us now, feel free to ask any questions you have in the chat box for Phillip Fullerton. He's a rock star online piano teacher. So Maria, you can pass over the questions from our community real fast. Thank you. So the first question, Phillip, is from Michael. Hello, Michael. Thank you for asking a question. Michael would like to know, what was the scariest part of becoming your own boss and making this your full-time job?
That's a great question, Michael. I think that the scariest part is just that you are your own boss, and there's always a chance that you may not make enough money to feed yourself, or for me, feed my animals or whatever.
Right.
And I think that's the scariest part. But just taking that leap, you will make it. It does take time. Unfortunately, things always take time, but if you work at it, the more you work at it, the faster you'll get it. And I think that that's really the scariest part, is just not being certain at first.
Right.
Whether you're going to make enough money to do this.
Got it. And the next question is from Francesca. If you could go back and talk to your younger self, what advice would you offer?
Take singing lessons.
Oh, really?
Now, this is weird. I know, because I do teach singing. Okay, so that goes back to, I didn't start singing until I was 18. I would sing as a little toddler, and then when I got to school, I was like, nope, I'm not singing. I'm not going to sing in choir. I'm just going to stand there and do nothing. I'm going to I'm going to be that person that does not participate. And once I got to college, for some reason, I decided I did enjoy singing, and tell myself that, hey, you are good at it. Don't let those 2 or 3 other kids that say, haha, you suck. Don't let them be right. Don't let them make you think that.
Right.
That's what I would tell myself. Don't believe the other kids, even though telling a kid that doesn't always work, but just don't believe what the other kids say.
Excellent advice. And Francesca has another question. What's the biggest challenge for you with teaching online? Okay,
so my biggest challenge has nothing to do with the students. It has to do with the internet. It has to do with some students have really low-end internet, and sometimes it's not their fault. I have one student that uses satellite internet because there is no cable or DSL internet where he lives. Now, his actually works better than some. That's the biggest challenge for me. I don't think that now that I realize that my ears work, that I don't have a problem with my singing students online. I don't have a problem with my piano students online. The singing students I thought were going to be the hardest because there's more a cappella singing. I'm used to being able to play with them. Can't do that when you have a bad internet signal. So there's a lot of things that I thought were challenging, but I worked through them. But the most challenging is when that person has a really bad Wi-Fi signal to their already really slow internet. I think that's my biggest challenge is, getting them to be willing to increase their speed. And I have done that.
Right.
I kind of very gently plug away at them to get faster internet.
You know, it's interesting because from my end, I have had the delightful challenge of trying to work through ways we can improve the consistency of connection quality in TakeLessons classroom. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the error we get back is that it's the internet, and it's usually the student, because all of our teachers kind of get that they need to have quick internet. So it's interesting to hear that even at your end, what the solution you found is to convince the student to get higher quality internet connection.
Right, because I would rather do that than say, okay, we have to go and use this other app that that works great, but I would rather use the same thing for every student whenever possible. Mm-hmm. But I have some students that just won't get faster internet, and we have to use like a different app that that's really good with low end internet.
All right, and another question from Tammy. Tammy would like to know, how have you chosen your rates?
So my rates used to actually, if I go back in time, were higher than they are now, which is, I know seems a little bit odd. Mm-hmm. But when I went to online teaching, I lowered my rates tremendously, which was a bad idea. I've already said that. And so since then, they have kind of crept up. I've kind of let my rates creep up. One of the things that I've done, and I've kind of been playing with this, trying to figure out what is the exact right difference between a 30-minute, 45-minute, and an hour lesson. And I noticed that when my 45-minute and hour lesson were basically a lot cheaper per hour than my 30-minute lesson, I was getting a lot of the wrong kind of students at that 45-minute level that would take 5, maybe 10 lessons and quit because they were getting a good deal.
Okay.
And so what I did is I made sure that I didn't have as big of a gap. I still have a slight kind of discount for an hour lesson and a 45, but it's very, very minimal now.
Okay. So there's more incentive to pick the right increment instead of try to get more time just for the
just doing it for money, because you don't want the student that's just trying to get the deal.
Right. So at this time, I'd like to give a shout out to Prajakta for sending love to Stephen and TakeLessons. Thank you very much for leaving a comment. And also, if you're just joining us, I'm Katie Rodriguez, broadcasting live from the TakeLessons headquarters in San Diego. We're here with Phillip Fullerton. He's a rock star piano instructor online. And we're sharing some insights and tips and hints on how to maximize your business teaching online lessons. So thanks again, Phillip, for joining us today. And
Sure.
I'm going to check and see if there's any other questions from the community. Maria, do we have anything? No more questions. And I think that's everything that anyone wanted to ask. So, Phillip, thank you very much.
Thank you, Phillip.
No problem. If anybody wants to private message me for any questions, you can do that. If you have any specific questions, you can do that as well, and
Wonderful.
I will answer.
Well, thanks again, and thank you to all of our partners who joined us today. You'll be able to find this video on the TakeLessons Partner Academy on YouTube shortly, and we wish all of you a wonderful week. Happy teaching.